The box was still warm when he placed it on the counter. Not hot, just not cold, like it had been running seconds before he walked in. He didn't say much, just pointed at the return receipt and said, "Doesn't work, smells burnt." His fingers were shaking, even though his voice wasn't. I noticed he kept looking over his shoulder, like he expected someone else to come in right after him. "Good evening. My name is Troy. I've been working returns and exchanges at a Walmart in Lubbock, Texas for the last 3 years. Mostly evening shifts. I used to clock in at 4 p.m. and stay until close. But now they've got me doing split coverage, which means I'm stuck here during the weirdest hours imaginable. You'd think returns would slow down after 9 p.m. They don't. The microwave was a standard black countertop Emerson model. Nothing fancy. We sell dozens of them a week. I've processed plenty of them for refund, usually over dumb stuff. Scratches, dented corners, or customers swearing it sparked for no reason. But this one felt off the moment it touched the metal counter. The cardboard was sealed with clear tape, but the edges looked like they'd been opened before, then resealed in a hurry. The guy who brought it in didn't give off any specific red flags. Late 30s, average build, hoodie with the drawstrings pulled too tight. I remember he smelled faintly of chlorine, and his knuckles were raw. He didn't make eye contact when I asked what was wrong with it. Just repeated the same phrase. "It smells burnt inside." Didn't work right. Normally, I'd have just scanned the receipt, logged it, and sent the box to the back with the rest of the duds. But I had a weird feeling about it. And I don't mean paranoia or nerves. I mean something quieter. Like walking into a room and realizing someone was just there a second ago. That warmth on the box, it was unnatural. And the smell? It wasn't like burnt food. It was chemical, bitter, lingering. I scanned the barcode on the receipt. It didn't work. Tried again. No match. The serial number was handwritten on the return slip, but even that was messy. 2 numbers were smudged, almost like they were written while moving. That's when I looked up and realized the man was gone. Just gone. No goodbye. No request for his refund. He didn't even wait for confirmation. I stepped around the counter to see if maybe he went toward the self-checkout, but the floor was empty. I didn't want to call it in right away. I've been burned before, chasing people down over minor policy stuff only to get written up myself for escalating. So I carried the box into the receiving room behind electronics and set it on the inspection table. That's when I heard it. A faint click, like metal tapping against ceramic. It came from inside the microwave. The box hadn't been opened yet. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there for a moment, staring at the edges of the tape. The plastic looked brittle, like it had melted slightly before being resealed. That's not something a normal kitchen return would look like. Not unless someone tried to cook something they really shouldn't have. Finally, I took the box cutter and slit through the top seam. The flaps peeled back with a dry sound, like cracking skin. The styrofoam was still inside, but it was warped, melted on one side, rigid on the other. I pulled the unit out slowly, gripping it with both hands. It was warm, not scalding, but way too warm for something that had supposedly stopped working. I set it down, looked at the door. It was splattered with something dark near the hinges. Brownish, dry, the kind of stain you'd ignore if you didn't want to know. I opened it. The smell hit immediately. Not strong, but sharp, like overheated plastic mixed with something organic. The glass plate inside had dark streaks across it, almost like burnt hair. There was something rattling inside, beneath the turntable. Everything was in place, which made what happened next even harder to explain. I didn't touch it again that night. I closed the microwave door and pushed the unit to the far edge of the table. Like putting distance between us might help clear my head. It didn't. I stayed there for a few minutes, pretending to type notes into the return system, but all I could focus on was the faint heat I still felt on my palms. That box wasn't room temperature. It was alive in some small, impossible way. My name is Troy. I'm 31. I've been manning the returns desk at Walmart in Lubbock, Texas since 2022. Before that, I did stocking, overnight freight, a little electronics coverage, but I settled into returns because I liked the routine. You take the item, check the receipt, process the refund. Clean cuts, simple policies. The chaos of retail filtered through a window. And most nights, it is simple, except when it's not. Our store closes at 11 p.m., but we start prepping around 10:15. That night I stayed until 11:45, doing a closeout sweep with Angel from security. He's ex-military, big guy, walks like he's still scanning rooftops. He didn't say much as we passed by the receiving room, but I noticed him glance at the table where I'd left the microwave. He didn't ask about it, and I didn't offer. After clocking out, I sat in my car in the parking lot for almost half an hour. I don't usually do that, but something about the man's voice, the smell, the click inside the box, it made me feel like I'd missed something, like I'd just touched the edge of something much bigger, and I hate that feeling. I hate not knowing what I've already seen. The next day, I checked the returns log. The entry wasn't there. The physical receipt was gone too. At first, I thought someone else had processed it overnight, maybe without entering it correctly. But when I asked Amanda from morning shift, she looked confused. "No, I didn't touch anything back there," she said. "And I didn't see a microwave. You sure you logged it?" I wanted to tell her everything, but I didn't. I just nodded and mumbled something about probably forgetting to finalize the ticket. Truth is, I never even finished entering the return. I got distracted when the man disappeared. That means the system shouldn't have any record at all, which lined up with what I was seeing, but it didn't explain why the box itself was missing now. That's when I started to doubt my own memory. Was the smell really that strong? Was it actually warm, or just warmer than I expected? Had the man even spoken to me directly? I pulled up the internal camera feed for the electronics counter just to check. The timestamp was there, 9:43 p.m. But when I played it back, the camera glitched during the moment he should have handed me the box. The frame jumped from me standing alone to me walking toward the back room, microwave already in hand. No customer visible, no exchange. Just a silent, empty frame that shouldn't be. I went back, rewatched it. Same thing. You might think that's a software issue. Old camera, frame drop, whatever. But I've worked there long enough to know how our system behaves. And this wasn't just a glitch. It was an absence. Like the recording never saw him at all. When I paused the feed and zoomed in, I saw something I didn't expect. My face. I looked different. Not scared, not tense. Just distracted. Like I'd seen something behind the camera. My eyes weren't focused on the box. They were focused past it. That's when I remembered something else. When I carried the microwave into the back room, I passed by the freezer aisle. One of the doors had fogged up, but not from cold. There was a handprint on the inside, human-sized, slid downward like someone had pressed it against the glass and slowly collapsed. I didn't stop to look then, but now the image was burned into my memory. I went back out to aisle 13, where we keep the microwaves, just to look, maybe to prove something to myself. They all looked the same, rows of identical boxes stacked 5 high. But when I touched one, second from the top, left stack, it felt warm, slightly. The same model, same brand, same barcode as the one from last night. I peeled back the corner of the box. The tape was broken, then resealed. Something was already here, and I think it wants to come back again. I still had the slip in my pocket. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe part of me knew something was wrong before anything even happened. I remember folding it without thinking and sliding it into my vest when I walked into the back room. I hadn't looked at it since. That morning, I unfolded it at my kitchen table. The paper was slightly damp, like it had absorbed something. Not water exactly, but oil maybe. A faint yellow tint around the edges. The print was uneven, like the machine that made it had been running low on ink. Half the letters were bold, the rest faded. I could barely make out the transaction number. The store number was correct, 5489, ours. The timestamp said 9:43 p.m., same moment I remembered him arriving. But the date? That's what stopped me. It said March 11th, but it was only February. At first I thought it was a typo. The wrong date entered manually, or a glitch in the register, but everything else lined up too perfectly. It had a valid associate ID number, even the name, handled by T. Warner. That was me, my login. I'd never seen this receipt before printing it. I checked my schedule for March 11th. I wasn't even assigned that day yet. It hadn't been posted. I wasn't scheduled for any shift past the current week, and yet somehow the receipt knew I'd be working that night. I went back to the store early. I told myself I just wanted to double-check the back room, maybe find the microwave again, maybe prove it hadn't disappeared after all. The warehouse manager wasn't in yet, so I unlocked the small returns cage myself. Nothing was there, just a few vacuum boxes and 2 broken lamps. No microwaves, no cardboard, no melted styrofoam. That's when I noticed something else. One of the new microwaves on the display shelf had no barcode sticker. That's impossible. Every box gets tagged at distribution. Even floor models have temp stickers. I pulled the box out, checked all sides. Nothing. Not even residue where a label had been peeled. Just blank cardboard and clear tape. I brought it to the desk and scanned the shelf code. Item not recognized. I opened it. The inside was clean. Too clean. The metal walls had a strange polish, like they'd been buffed down with something corrosive. The turntable was missing. There were scratches along the interior roof, tight spirals near the back vent. And burned into the glass, almost invisible unless the light hit just right, was a faint crescent shape, like a jaw, no teeth, just the outline. I put everything back and closed the box, taped it, pushed it behind the others. I needed someone to confirm I wasn't imagining this. I called John, our assistant manager. He's worked inventory for over a decade and knows every SKU in the store. I showed him the receipt. He didn't even blink. "We don't use these forms anymore," he said. "That template's from like 2017. All our returns go through app now." "But it printed at my register," I told him. John squinted. "That's not possible." I didn't argue. I just watched him take the paper, fold it neatly, and slide it into his clipboard. He told me to focus on the day's tasks, to stop digging. Later that night, I checked the clipboard. The receipt wasn't there, just a blank space where it should have been. The smell came back 2 days later. I wasn't near the back room. I wasn't touching any microwaves. I was standing at register 6 helping a woman return a blender when it hit me again. Sharp, acidic, unmistakably artificial. Like burnt plastic layered with something organic, something that shouldn't be heated. It wasn't strong. Not at first. It came in waves, each one barely noticeable, like someone slowly turning a dial. I looked around to see if any of the registers were overheating, checked the vent above me, touched the keypad. Everything was cold. Then the woman in front of me made a face. "You smell that?" she asked. "Like something's cooking?" I nodded slowly. "It's been happening on and off. Probably a wiring issue." She wrinkled her nose and looked toward the electronics section. "Smells like teeth," she muttered, then immediately laughed like she regretted saying it. That was the moment I knew it wasn't just me. After she left, I walked back toward the receiving room. The smell got worse the closer I got. Not overwhelming, just consistent, familiar, like whatever had been inside that microwave was still in the air, seeping through the store's vents. I stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the metal inspection table. It was empty, but the surface had a faint mark, a ring, almost invisible unless you looked from the side. A heat shadow, slightly darker than the surrounding metal. I ran my fingers across it. Smooth, warped. That's where I'd set the microwave. The smell seemed to be coming from the table itself. I got down on one knee and looked underneath. Nothing there, but there were dark streaks along the baseboard. Not liquid, not soot. Just faint smears, like someone had dragged a dirty glove under the panel. I followed the marks with my eyes. They curved toward the corner, stopped near the wall outlet. I unplugged everything, checked behind the cabinet. Nothing. I stood up. The room felt warmer now. Not hot, but too warm for a closed-off space. I opened the back door to let some air in, and that's when I saw the freight cage by the dock. There was a box inside, no label, no tag, just a plain brown box with clear tape sitting dead center like someone had placed it there for me. It was a microwave. Same size, same shape. I didn't open it. Not then. I called Angel from security. "Did someone return another Emerson microwave today?" "Not that I saw," he said. "Why?" "There's one in the cage. No label. Just showed up." He came down 5 minutes later, looked at the box, touched it. "It's warm," he said. We both stood there, staring at it. "You want me to pull the footage?" he asked. I nodded. We went to the security office and he scrubbed through the dock feed from the last hour. The footage showed the cage empty at 2:16 p.m. Then, at 2:31, the box was just there. No one wheeled it in, no truck backed up, no employee entered the frame. Just nothing. Then box. Angel leaned back and crossed his arms. "That's not right." He didn't say anything else, just left the room. I stayed behind, rewound the footage again. At 2:29, something flickered in the bottom right corner. Not a figure, not a shadow, just a brief distortion, like heat rising off asphalt. It bent the camera feed slightly, then disappeared. And after that, the box was there. When I returned to the dock, the cage was empty. The box was gone. I never heard the door open, never saw anyone take it, but the heat was still there, lingering, silent. I should have reported it officially. I should have called the manager, logged an incident, maybe even sent an email to corporate. But instead, I waited until close. I waited until the lights dimmed and the last customers left, until the intercom played its robotic "Thank you for shopping at Walmart," and the doors locked behind Angel. That night, I stayed late on purpose. The cage was empty. But I knew the box was still somewhere inside the store. There's a spot in the back of receiving, behind the seasonal overflow racks, where old displays and repackaged appliances get stashed before disposal. Most associates don't go there. It's dusty, tight, barely lit. The kind of place where things go to be forgotten. And that's where I found it. Same microwave, same dimensions, same box. Tucked behind a fake Christmas tree stand and a stack of unused shelving brackets. No barcode, no branding, just clear tape across the top. Not store-issued tape either. The kind people use in basements. Thin, yellowed, wrinkled from too many uses. I touched it, still warm, and when I moved it, something shifted inside. A dry, hollow sound, like bone against ceramic. I set the box on the ground and cut the tape. The cardboard gave way reluctantly, the flaps curling open with a strange stiffness. Inside was the microwave, facing upward like a coffin laid open. I slid it out slowly and set it on a plastic crate. Then I opened the door. There, on the glass turntable, was something I still can't explain. It was small, white, rounded. At first, I thought it was a piece of melted plastic, maybe a component that had burned off from the internal wiring. But as I leaned in, I saw the ridges, the root structure, the enamel sheen still intact on the front side. It was a tooth, human, and next to it 3 more. 4 human teeth, scattered unevenly across the plate. No blood, no gum tissue, just clean, dry, yellowed bone. One had a filling, another was cracked down the center. They weren't new. They looked aged. I didn't breathe. I just stared. Then something rattled again. I stepped back and tilted the unit. The sound came from deeper, beneath the inner wall. There was something else inside, loose between the casing and the shell. I grabbed a screwdriver from the shelf and removed the back panel. It took effort. The screws were rusted, like the unit had been exposed to moisture. Finally, the back came loose. A thin black pouch fell out. Leather, old, tied shut with what looked like human hair. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I could hear what was inside. A faint clink as it hit the floor, like marbles, but heavier, denser. Teeth, more of them. I picked up the pouch and placed it back inside, then reattached the panel. When I stood up, I caught my reflection in the microwave door. But it wasn't my reflection. I was standing still, but the image in the door was swaying slightly, like it was underwater. My arms were hanging at the wrong angle, my head tilted too far left, and my mouth wasn't closed. I slammed the door shut. The image disappeared. I left the unit there in the dark and walked out without logging anything. Some things don't need paperwork. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the teeth, though that would have been enough, but because of the silence. I live alone, 1-bedroom place on the south edge of town. Usually the noise of the highway hums me to sleep, but that night, it was dead quiet. Not even a car. Around 3 a.m., I went into the bathroom and looked at my own teeth in the mirror. Just looked, counted, ran my tongue along the edges. Checked for gaps, cracks, anything loose. They felt too solid, like they didn't belong to me. I kept seeing the image of the turntable, 4 teeth, neatly placed but not intentionally, as if they just landed there, fallen during use, like the microwave had shaken them loose from something. The next shift I came in early. I went straight to receiving. The microwave was gone. I checked the overflow corner. Gone. I checked the compactor logs. No appliance had been destroyed in the last 24 hours. I asked Angel if he'd moved anything. He shook his head. Didn't even go back there. "You sure you didn't dream that part?" I didn't respond, because I wasn't sure anymore. But later that day, something happened that I couldn't explain away. A woman brought in a return. Another Emerson. Same size. Same tape. She didn't say much. Just set it down, slid the receipt toward me, and said, "Didn't heat evenly." Her eyes were red, not crying, just raw, like she hadn't slept in days. Her hands trembled as she let go of the box. I scanned the receipt. It worked. Transaction complete. But the barcode on the box didn't match the receipt. I checked twice, 3 times. Still showed up as invalid, like the box didn't exist, but the receipt did. I asked if she had used it recently. She didn't answer at first, just looked at the floor and said, "I shouldn't have turned it on." I asked her what she meant. She looked up at me and whispered, "They come back through heat." Then she turned and walked out. Left the refund, left the microwave, just vanished into the parking lot. I waited until my shift ended. Then I opened the box. Same smell, same warmth, same faint pressure in the air, like the moment before a storm, where the atmosphere feels too heavy. Inside there was no turntable, just a glass dish, square, not standard, and in the center, one tooth. This one was longer than the others, sharper, a canine maybe. It was embedded in the glass, like it had melted into the dish while it was hot. I tapped it with a pen. It didn't move. I flipped the unit over. There were scratches along the base, deep ones, not accidental, not from sliding. They looked like tally marks, 7 vertical lines, no cross mark for 5, just 7, and next to them, written in faint marker, "They never stopped eating." That night, I dreamt of static, the old kind, gray snow on a TV screen. In the dream, the microwave door was open. The inside was black. A shape moved behind the glass, something with teeth, too many teeth, clicking softly. And when I woke up, my room smelled like burnt plastic. I waited until the store was quiet again. Past 10 p.m., just me, Angel, and the janitor left on the clock. I used my override keycard to get into the security office. Not something I'm supposed to do. But after what I saw in that microwave, I needed answers, even if they didn't make sense. The system isn't great. It's all timestamp based, low resolution, 30 frames per second. But it's enough. I queued up the feed from Register 6, starting 30 minutes before the woman brought in the microwave. At 6:11 p.m., I'm behind the counter, tapping keys, sipping from my thermos. At 6:23 p.m., a customer approaches, blurred in motion, her face turned away. At 6:25 p.m., she's gone. No handoff, no visible item. But at 6:26 p.m., the microwave box is just there, sitting on the counter, right in front of me. It didn't appear in the footage. It wasn't carried in. It just was, like it had always been. I checked the adjacent angles, the overhead view, the side lens, even the wide shot from electronics. Same thing. She walks up empty-handed. She leaves empty-handed. But somehow, in between, I end up with a microwave in front of me, and I'm looking right at it like it's normal. Angel came in while I was replaying the moment. "You're not supposed to be in here," he said, but his voice was flat, not angry, curious. I didn't turn to face him. "I need to show you something." I backed the footage up again, let it play, slow motion this time. When the customer is at the counter, there's a brief static flicker across the screen, no more than a frame or two. During that flicker, something shifts, just a blur behind the microwave, like the suggestion of motion, not human, not animal, just motion, wrong and shapeless. Angel leaned in. "You see that?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Watch the reflection." I paused the screen and zoomed in on the microwave door. where the polished black surface reflected part of the store. You could see me, slightly warped. You could see the edge of the counter, but you couldn't see the customer. Nothing. Just a flat void where she should have been standing. Angel stared at it for a while, then said, "I've seen that before." I turned to him slowly. "Where?" He didn't elaborate, just tapped the screen and said, "Don't show this to John." Then he walked out. I sat there in the dark, watching the footage again and again. And every time I paused it, I noticed something new. A shift in the overhead lights that didn't happen in real life. A can of soda that moved 2 inches without anyone touching it. A shadow passing across the aisle even though no one was there. And that static flicker. The more I watched it, the more it looked like something was trying to enter the frame. Like the camera resisted whatever was happening. That night, I copied the footage onto a personal drive. When I checked it the next morning, the file was corrupted. Not deleted, corrupted. It played only 1 second, a still image. My face leaning toward the screen. Behind me, in the glass reflection of the microwave, a second face, mouth open, teeth bared, no eyes. You start to notice things when you're trained to look at details. Barcodes, return stamps, surface damage, alignment of product packaging. All of it matters, even when it shouldn't. So when I realized something was wrong with the reflections in our store, I wasn't surprised. It started with a soda fridge, the kind with the clear glass door next to the pharmacy. I passed it on my break. I glanced at my own reflection, something I've done 100 times without thinking. And for a split second, I didn't see myself. I saw the aisle behind me, empty, well lit, silent. Then the reflection caught up, like it had lagged behind. I froze. I turned around. No one there. I stared at the glass again, waiting to see if it would happen again. It didn't, but that delay stuck with me. So I tested it. I walked the entire back wall of the store, past electronics, past the meat section, every surface that reflected, fridge doors, TV screens, polished tile. I watched myself move. In every one of them, there was something wrong. Sometimes my hands moved a second too late. Sometimes the face looking back wasn't mine. Sometimes, the reflection blinked when I didn't. I ended up back in aisle 13, staring at a boxed microwave on the shelf. I bent down slightly and caught my reflection in the glossy plastic wrap. Same thing. The version of me inside the plastic wasn't breathing, just standing there, lips parted like it was waiting for something. I opened the flap of one of the boxes, just enough to peek inside. The turntable inside was shattered, not broken in pieces. Shattered in a perfect spiral, like something had twisted it from the center outward. I closed the box, taped it back up, took 3 steps back. That's when I saw it again, not in the glass, but on the floor tile. A reflection that shouldn't have been there, not cast by any light. Just the faint shimmer of something standing near me. But I was alone. I stepped forward. The shimmer stayed behind, then blinked out. I called Angel on the walkie. "Hey, you got a second? Go ahead. You ever notice anything weird with reflections in here?" Silence then. "Don't look at the floor after hours. Just trust me." I didn't press him. That night I cleaned the returns counter thoroughly, polished every surface, left it spotless, then turned off the main lights and stood in the dark with just the safety fluorescents above me. And I watched. The microwave display doors were aligned in a perfect row, each reflecting the counter at a slightly different angle. In one of them, my reflection was gone. Not all of them. Just the third one from the left. Where I should have been standing, there was nothing. Just the counter, the wall, the other boxes. No me. I reached out slowly and opened the door. As I pulled it, I saw the reflection return, just a flash of movement, like something diving out of frame. Inside the microwave, there was a word scratched into the wall, very small, so small I almost missed it. "Stay." And next to it, a tiny imprint, like a child's fingerprint, burned into the metal. The next return came 3 days later. Another man, different from the others but only on the surface. Taller, older maybe, with deep lines around his mouth and eyes that didn't blink often enough. He walked straight up to the counter with a microwave in his hands. No box this time, no packaging, just the bare unit, carried like a baby. gently, carefully. He didn't speak at first. Just set it down and looked at me. "Didn't work," he said finally. Started humming before I even plugged it in. I didn't ask any questions. I took the microwave and set it aside. "Do you have ID?" I asked. He nodded and pulled a laminated card from his pocket. It wasn't a driver's license, just a white rectangle with his photo and a name, Gerald Weston. No address, no birth date, just a barcode and the Walmart logo in faded gray. I scanned it. The register beeped twice, then displayed a red warning I'd never seen before. ID not recognized. Authorization required. I tried again. Same result. I keyed the number manually. Still nothing. I looked at the card again. It didn't have the usual text formatting. No associate since. No regional division. Just the photo. Too flat, like it had been printed from memory. And the name, which didn't appear in our employee database when I checked. "You work here?" I asked. "Used to," he said, smiling faintly. "Long time ago. Different layout then." That didn't make sense. Our store hadn't been remodeled in at least 8 years. And even then, nothing major. Just a reset of the aisles. "Which department?" He looked past me. "Returns." He pointed at the spot where I was standing. "Right here." I checked the schedule archive. No one by that name. No Gerald Weston in any shift log for the past 10 years. I looked back up to ask another question, but he was gone. I walked around the counter, scanned the aisles. Nothing. The microwave was still there though, sitting on the counter. I hesitated before touching it, then turned it slightly to face me. There was no power cord, just a blank hole where the cord should have been. And on the underside, scrawled in ink so faint it looked like it had been written with water. I returned it once already. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. I brought the unit to the back and opened it. No teeth this time, but something was inside. A folded note, torn from what looked like an old Walmart notepad. Blue lines, yellow paper. Same kind we used years ago. I opened it carefully. The ink was smeared but still legible. "It doesn't cook. It remembers." I put the note back inside, closed the door, and stared at my reflection in the glass, waiting to see if it would blink before I did. It didn't blink. It smiled. That night, I did something I wasn't supposed to. I accessed the inventory exception log, a hidden section in our internal system used by managers and corporate field agents. It tracks damaged goods, misplaced freight, and anything flagged as anomalous. It's not password protected if you know the path. Most employees don't even know it exists. I only learned about it because John once left the console open during a staffing audit. I typed in the serial number from the last return microwave, the one Gerald Weston brought in. Nothing came up. I tried another number, the first one, from the warm box. Nothing. But when I searched by item description, narrowing it to Emerson 900-watt black models, a list appeared. Only 6 entries, each marked with a code I'd never seen before, ENV13D. Each unit was flagged as lost in transit, with delivery destinations that included our store number, 5489. Delivery dates ranged back 2 years. None of these microwaves had ever been signed in. None ever scanned at receiving. And yet somehow they'd all been accounted for by an entity labeled only as site sub. I clicked on one of the entries. A pop-up opened with a warning. Access beyond this point requires Tier 2 clearance. Notify Inventory Security Division if visibility breach is suspected. I closed it immediately. Something about the phrasing didn't sound corporate. Visibility breach? What does that even mean in retail? I printed the list and folded it into my wallet. That same night, while I was cleaning out the damage bin, I found a microwave at the bottom. No return slip, no box. Just the unit, wedged behind a broken humidifier and an empty printer shell. I pulled it out, same model. On the side, written in permanent marker, was a 6-digit number, 024913. Not a barcode, not a store code. I checked it against the list I printed earlier. It matched, one of the lost units. I opened the door. Inside, taped to the roof, was a strip of paper. It had been partially burned, edges curled, center intact. Only 2 words were still legible. Don't heat. I stared at it for a long time, because in that moment, I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. My first month working at this store, an associate from appliances was fired for tampering with returned items. I never met him, just heard rumors. Something about digging where he wasn't supposed to. His name was never officially mentioned. But now I wonder, was it Gerald? Was he still working returns? Still bringing things back? Still feeding the system whatever these things are? And more importantly, why are they only showing up in this store? They showed up without warning. Two men in dark polo shirts with no name tags, no smiles, no introductions. Just the Walmart logo stitched too perfectly over their left chests, like it hadn't been made with thread. More like it had been pressed into the fabric with heat. They arrived at 7:12 a.m., before the store even opened. I saw them walking the perimeter of receiving, clipboard in hand, checking serial numbers on appliances without touching anything. They didn't talk to anyone at first, just moved slowly, scanning the top racks, making notes, and occasionally stopping to whisper to each other. At 8:03, John pulled me aside. "Troy, I need you to assist some visitors from Bentonville," he said. "Home office?" I asked. He nodded, but he looked off, pale, sweating. "They're auditing returns for internal discrepancies." That phrase stuck in my head. Internal discrepancies. Like they were looking for something misplaced inside us, not the store. I met them near the break room. The older one did the talking. Thin frame, sharp jaw, eyes that didn't settle. "We've had several product inconsistencies reported across regional fulfillment centers," he said. "We're doing a sweep for defective batch patterns. You've handled most of the returns here, correct?" I nodded. "Have you logged any unusual behaviors in customer returns? Anything irregular with microwave units?" That was the exact phrase he used. Irregular behaviors, not defects, not malfunctions, behaviors. I asked what they meant by that. The younger one, silent until then, handed me a laminated chart. It had no title, just 8 photos of microwaves. Each showed internal damage, melted plastic, warped turntables, even one with black soot in the shape of a human face. "Have you seen any units like these?" he asked. I recognized 3. I told them yes. They exchanged a glance. Then the older one leaned in. "If any future returns match these conditions, we need to be notified before the units are processed. Do not open them. Do not plug them in. Do not discard them." I asked what I was looking at. He paused. "Think of it as a containment issue," he said. "Some devices from certain freight lanes are returning with retention artifacts." Retention. Artifacts. Corporate doesn't use language like that. They left an hour later. Took 2 microwaves with them. Both tagged from the lost batch. Neither had ever been logged into the system. But they made a mistake. They left a folder in the back office, just sitting on the return desk under a ream of printer paper. I waited until the camera above the counter rotated toward the pharmacy. Then I opened it. Inside were several inventory sheets, a map of the store with aisle 13 circled in red, and a page labeled Pattern Recognition Emergent Structures in EM9 Series. At the bottom, a handwritten note. Heat activation, memory retrieval. Visual exposure increases anchor stability. Reflections are not passive. There were no signatures, no logos, just a paperclip rusted along one side. I copied what I could, then hid the rest behind the old label maker drawer. That night, aisle 13 felt different, heavier. And the glass doors on the floor models? Every single one was slightly ajar. They didn't check it out through the system. They didn't sign anything, log anything, or acknowledge the removal in any record. They just carried the unit out the back, placed it gently in the trunk of a black sedan with no plates, and drove away before the sun was fully up. The microwave they took was the one from Gerald Weston, the one with no cord, no reflection, and the folded note inside. It remembers. It had been sitting on the back inspection table under a tarp since I'd moved it there quietly the night before. I hadn't even told John. I wanted time to think. When I came in that morning, it was gone. I checked the CCTV. The feed cut out between 4:31 and 4:44 a.m., just static. When it came back on, the table was empty. I confronted John. Asked him if the auditors from Bentonville had taken it. He didn't answer right away, just stared at me. Then he said, "They told me not to talk about it." "Told you?" "They said you'd ask." Something about that made my stomach turn. "They knew I'd ask," I said. "Or they said those words?" He looked down. They knew. That's when I realized how far gone he was, how long he'd known. The break room smelled like burnt ozone the rest of the day. I don't know how to describe that smell unless you've felt it. It's not electrical, not mechanical. It's like heat that came from inside something living. That afternoon, I went back to the drawer where I'd hidden the folder. It was gone, but something had been left in its place. A Polaroid photo, black and white, dated July 14th, 2006. It showed the back room, same inspection table, same camera angle. A microwave sat at the center, different model, older, but the same size, same posture, same emptiness around it. And in the lower right corner, barely visible, was a pair of shoes, work boots, the kind we used to issue employees 15 years ago. Scrawled on the back of the photo in red marker, "It never left." That night, I went home and pulled every mirror in my apartment off the walls. The microwave above my stove, unplugged, but I still heard it humming. I don't know who put the folder back, but when it reappeared, it wasn't in the drawer. It was under my car seat. I found it the next morning before work, while fumbling for my badge lanyard. The same tan folder, same rusted clip, but the contents had changed. No printed inventory lists, no microwave serial logs, just hand-drawn pages. The first was a diagram of a microwave unit, the Emerson model, but drawn in pen and pencil, not CAD. Detailed, obsessive. Every vent and seam accounted for, except in the center of the turntable, someone had drawn a circle. Inside that circle, they'd shaded in what looked like a human molar. Next page, a cross-section of the unit. But the internal wiring was wrong, coiled into a spiral pattern instead of the standard electromagnetic waveguide. The magnetron had no shielding. Instead, it was labeled conduit. Below that, a word written 3 times, each in different handwriting. Anchor, anchor, anchor. The next few pages weren't diagrams. They were maps. Store layouts, our Walmart specifically, copied and redrawn over and over. But each one showed the aisles at odd angles, the proportions twisted. Aisle 13, in every drawing, curved slightly to the left, as if bent around something not printed on the planogram. In one version, aisle 13 wasn't connected to the rest of the store. It ended in a spiral, just ink, just a swirl of lines curling inward, with the word entry written underneath in block letters. Another map showed a pathway from the loading dock to the returns desk, but along the route, little X's had been marked, 7 of them. At each X, a date was scribbled, some from this year, some from before I even worked there. One date stood out, March 11th, the same date from the impossible receipt. One of the final drawings showed a cluster of microwaves arranged in a circle. 9 units, doors open, each one labeled not with numbers, but with names. Gerald, Tamika, R. Nolan, April, Simon. My name was among them, Troy. Next to my name, a question mark had been drawn, and beneath it, smaller letters. Not yet cooked. I closed the folder, put it in my trunk, and didn't speak to anyone that day unless I had to. But the drawings wouldn't leave my head. That spiral, it wasn't random. It looked exactly like the heat marks left on the inspection table, the circular cracks in the shattered turntables. Even the way some of the teeth I'd found were laid out, coiled like they'd been arranged that way by heat, not hand. At closing, I stood in aisle 13 again. Lights off, just my flashlight. I placed 9 microwaves on the floor, formed the circle exactly like the drawing, opened each door. Nothing happened, but the temperature in the aisle dropped sharply, and from inside one of the units, third from the left, I heard a voice whisper, 3 more. It was the same box. I don't mean the same model. I mean the same box, same creases, same torn corner on the right flap, same faded shipping sticker half peeled near the handle. And when he set it down, I recognized the faint black smudge across the top, the one I'd made with my glove 3 weeks ago, trying to carry it without touching the surface too long. He brought it in like nothing was wrong. Didn't heat evenly, he said. Same words, same tone. But he wasn't the same man. This one was younger, clean cut. Blue polo, no stubble. Nothing visibly off, except his hands. They were shaking, not from cold, not from nerves. More like tremors, the kind you get from muscle memory or trauma that never quite leaves the body. I asked him how long he'd had the unit. He blinked. About 3 days. I checked the receipt. It said the return was processed last week. By me. The barcode was the same one from Gerald's return, the one I'd never scanned into the system. I pulled up the transaction history. Empty. No purchase log, no card used, no cash entry. The receipt was printed on thermal paper, but the font was distorted, wavy, like the text had been pulled by heat while printing. I asked for his ID. He handed me a Texas license. Expired 5 years ago. His name, Simon K. Alder. I'd seen the name before, in the folder, one of the 9 drawn beneath the microwaves. Simon, I said, have you returned anything here before? He looked behind me, not around me, through me, then whispered, I'm just trying to stop it from remembering. He left before I could stop him. Walked out without waiting for his refund. The box stayed on the counter. I brought it to the back room again. Same weight, same warmth, same rattle inside. I opened it slowly. Inside the microwave was a photo, black and white, of me, taken from above, behind, through the convex curve of the store's ceiling mirror. I was kneeling in aisle 13, arranging the 9 microwaves, same as 2 nights ago. Only this photo was dated March 11th. I flipped it over. On the back, written in fine red ink, they see from inside, not out. I checked the turntable. It was gone. In its place, a blackened metal coil, not part of the microwave, just a spiral of wire fused into the tray slot. I pulled it loose. It burned my fingers. I dropped it and watched it twitch on the floor like a dying centipede, then go still. I put the entire unit into a sealed box, duct-taped every seam, and shoved it into the furthest corner of the freight cage. Then I told Angel. He didn't ask questions. He just said, that's the second this week. We keep a binder in the office. It's old, cracked, duct-taped along the spine. No one uses it anymore, but it's technically still required by corporate, the store incident archive, a handwritten log of injuries, thefts, accidents, and terminations going back almost 15 years. Everything that happens off record ends up in there. I pulled it out on my lunch break. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe confirmation that someone else had been through this. Maybe a name, a clue, something to prove I wasn't the first. It didn't take long. Page 37, dated July 19th, 2011. Employee name, R. Nolan Department. Returns, Josh backroom status. Terminated, voluntary leave, unconfirmed. Notes, employee failed to report for scheduled shifts over 4 consecutive days. Locker found emptied. Badge left on counter. No formal resignation submitted. Surveillance footage from last confirmed shift, July 14th, 2011, shows Nolan entering aisle 13 at 9:42 p.m. Exit footage unavailable. Security sweep yielded no results. Investigation closed July 21st. Someone had added a handwritten note at the bottom in red pen, left the doors open. I flipped back to earlier entries. Nolan's name appeared 6 times between 2010 and 2011. Every time, tied to microwave returns. One note mentioned an unauthorized teardown of a unit in receiving. Another described a box emitting residual warmth despite unplugged state. The final entry before his disappearance simply read, requesting transfer away from electronics, says the units are watching. I felt cold reading it. I remembered the name from the folder, R. Nolan, another unit in the circle. I printed a copy of the surveillance summary and brought it to Angel. Do you remember this guy? I asked. Angel stared at the page, then slowly nodded. He was quiet, kept to himself, always checking serial numbers. Did anyone ever find him? Angel shook his head, then added, but his locker's still open sometimes, even though it's locked. I asked what he meant. I'm not joking, he said. Twice this month I've found it hanging open during sweep. No sign of forced entry, still locked tight next day. He took me to the back hall where the old employee lockers are kept. Most haven't been touched in years. Some still have stickers from past seasons. Locker number 17 had Nolan's name scratched faintly into the metal, barely visible now. I reached out. The handle was warm. I tried it. Locked. Angel shrugged. I leaned my head close to the seam, not sure why. Maybe to listen, maybe to feel. Inside, I heard a click. Not a lock. A turntable, softly rotating. I stepped back. Angel stared at me, then said, "He told me once, just before he stopped showing up, that every time someone returns one of those microwaves, it's not to get rid of it." "What then?" Angel looked away. "He said it's to give it back." There was a number in the folder. I hadn't noticed it before. Probably skipped over it, assuming it was just a contact line or placeholder. But now, after reading about Nolan, after hearing what Angel said, I looked at it differently. Scrawled in the top right corner of one of the old inventory maps. For escalation, 214-660-49XX. The last 2 digits were smeared. I stared at it for a long time. The area code was local, Dallas. But the formatting wasn't standard, and beneath it, written in faint pencil, "Do not call from store phone." I waited until I got home, used a burner cell I kept in a drawer, left over from a time I thought I'd need a separate line for job interviews. The battery was still good. I dialed the number. It didn't ring, just clicked once, then silence. Then a voice. A child's voice. Soft. Flat. No background noise. No emotion. "Are you bringing it back?" she asked. I froze. "Who is this?" I asked. A pause. Then, "They said you would try." My fingers tightened on the phone. "Who are they?" Another pause. Then something I'll never forget. "They're watching through the glass." The line went dead. No disconnection tone, no hang-up click. Just silence. As if the call had never existed. I checked the phone history. No record of the call. No outgoing dial. Just an empty screen, like I'd imagined it. I sat on my bed, heart pounding, staring at the wall for 20 minutes before the microwave on my kitchen counter beeped. 3 times. Slow, precise. It wasn't plugged in. I walked over, staring at the blank display. Beep, beep, beep. Then silence. I opened the door. Inside was a folded receipt, burnt at the edges. Same format as before, same handwriting, same timestamp. March 11th, 9:43 p.m. Same return ID. But this one had a new line written by hand. "Last cycle incomplete, awaiting closure." I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor facing the microwave all night, waiting for the next sound. It never came. But in the morning, every reflective surface in my apartment had fogged over from the inside. Even the screen of the unplugged microwave. Something changed in the aisle. Not all at once, not dramatic, but in subtle ways you'd only notice if you've walked it hundreds of times, like I have. Aisle 13 has always been a straight line. That's the whole point, lined with boxed appliances on one side, smaller electronics on the other. Easy to scan, easy to navigate, but lately it curves. Not visibly, not enough to notice unless you're paying attention to how your feet land. But when I walk it now, I feel the angle shift slightly with every step, like I'm being guided around something that shouldn't be there. The microwaves face outward, dozens of them, some still boxed, some floor models, doors slightly ajar. The air around them feels too still, not cold, not warm, just absent, like the climate doesn't apply to that space anymore. And sometimes they hum, not all at once, one by one, quiet at first, then louder, always when no one else is there. I tested it, brought Angel in at 3 a.m. We stood at opposite ends of the aisle, both listening. Nothing. Then I left. Let him stand there alone for 10 minutes while I pretended to go check inventory. When I came back, he looked pale. "I heard it," he said. "What?" "All of them. Same tone, same pitch." Then one of them beeped. 3 times. "Which one?" He didn't answer. He just walked away. The next day, someone from corporate called. Not the same men as before. A woman this time. Calm voice. No greeting. "Has aisle 13 been disturbed?" I hesitated. "What do you mean by disturbed?" She didn't elaborate, just said, "If any floor models activate unprompted, do not engage. Close all doors. Do not observe internal reflections." Then she hung up. I didn't even tell her my name. That night, the overhead lights above aisle 13 flickered every 12 seconds. Not random, timed. I used my phone to record it, then played it back in slow motion. Each flicker corresponded with a shift in the reflections of the microwave doors. On frame 26, during the third flicker, I saw something behind me. Not a person, not a shape, just a suggestion, like heat haze taking form. Watching. The next morning, I came in early and opened one of the floor models. Inside was a crumpled employee badge. Old design, worn laminate, name T. Warner. My name. But the photo was wrong. It showed me, older, eyes dark, smile missing. And across the bottom, where the barcode should have been, were 5 words burned into the plastic. You finished the cycle. I still have the badge, but I haven't touched it since. I stopped checking the microwaves, stopped opening doors, stopped responding to return requests after hours. But it didn't matter. They still opened, on their own. Usually sometime after close, just before we shut down the registers. You'd hear it, the hollow thump of a microwave door swinging open in the distance. Always soft, always slow, as if it knew how much noise it could make without alerting anyone else. I asked Angel to walk aisle 13 with me one more time. He said no. Said the last time he did, he saw something reflected in the stainless steel bottom of a microwave drawer, something crouching behind him, but when he turned, there was nothing. I'm not going back there, he said. Some things reflect wrong. So I went alone. It was just past 11 p.m. I walked the aisle deliberately. Floor models all aligned, some doors open, some half-latched. The hum was back, but now it had rhythm, almost like breathing. The entire aisle seemed to exhale around me. I stopped at the 7th unit from the left, one of the larger ones. Door cracked open. I closed it gently, then turned to leave. Behind me, it opened again. Not a sound, just a slow creak like it didn't care if I noticed. I turned back around and crouched, leveled my eyes with the door, with the black glass panel, and stared. At first I saw only myself, distorted, pale in the flickering light. Then something moved behind the reflection. Not inside the microwave, behind the door itself. It blinked. A human eye, just one, pressed against the glass from the other side, watching me through the impossibility of solid material. Bloodshot, fixed, unblinking now that I'd noticed. My body locked. I didn't breathe, didn't blink. It stared through the curved surface like it had been waiting. And then it did something I still don't understand. It smiled, just the eye, no mouth, but I felt the smile behind it. A silent grin that twisted the inside of my stomach. Then it retreated, not away but sideways, sliding out of view behind the glass curve like a fish vanishing into dark water. I shut the door hard. Every microwave in the aisle clicked shut in unison. Dozens of doors snapping closed like they'd been waiting for a cue. I backed away slowly, left the aisle. Didn't go back for the rest of the night. At home, I unplugged my microwave and covered every reflective surface with old Walmart shirts. When I tried to sleep, I saw that eye every time I closed mine. The next morning, I found a sticky note on my locker. No handwriting, just a printed message in bold font. They see you now. I tried to file a report. I sat down at the back office terminal after my shift and began typing everything, as much as I could without sounding unhinged. I left out the eye, left out the folder, focused on the returns, the irregular barcodes, the tampered units, the missing customers. Just the facts, just enough to raise questions. I hit submit. System froze. The screen went gray, cursor spinning. Then a message appeared. Incident already resolved. I hadn't even entered the incident type. I checked the log. No record of the report. No drafts. No system alert. I went to John. Tried to explain. Not everything. Just what I could. He stared at me like he didn't recognize my voice. When I mentioned the serial numbers, he interrupted me. We haven't received any microwave returns this quarter. That's not true, I said. We've had at least 6. He shook his head. Nothing's been processed. I told him to check the back room. He didn't, just said, maybe you need some time off. He walked away without another word. I went to Angel, told him what John said. Angel laughed once, quietly. "They always do that," he said. "Do what?" "Pretend it's new. Pretend we're crazy. But they know." I asked him how long this had been happening. He looked at me but didn't answer directly, just said, "How long do you think a store this big can forget things before they start piling up?" Later that day, I checked our internal inventory again. The model numbers were gone, all of them. Every Emerson microwave had been wiped from our database, even the floor models, even the archived sales, like they'd never existed. I went to aisle 13. It was empty, not cleared, not reset, just gone. Where the shelves should have been, there was a flat gray wall, new paint, dry, still smelling faintly of latex. No signs of construction, no noise, no permits filed. A new sign had been hung from the ceiling. Temporary storage, do not enter. But I remembered the curve, the way the aisle bent, the spiral in the drawings. It hadn't been closed. It had been sealed. That night I checked the security feed. Footage of aisle 13 skipped from 2:06 a.m. to 2:31 a.m. The timestamp where the microwave had once appeared. The rest of the store played normally, but that stretch, blank. When I played it in reverse, the audio glitched. A voice emerged behind the static. Mine, repeating a single sentence. "We don't return them. We bring them back. I'm still here, still wearing the vest, still clocking in, still smiling at customers and scanning receipts like nothing's changed. Like I didn't see what I saw. Like I didn't open those doors and watch something blink from behind the glass. They moved me to seasonal, said electronics was overstaffed, said they needed someone with experience in returns to handle the front of store mess during the clearance rush. But I know why they did it. They're keeping me away from aisle 13. What they don't realize, or maybe they do, is that it doesn't matter. Aisle 13 isn't a location anymore. It's a pattern. It's in the heat that lingers too long after a unit's unplugged. It's in the barcodes that scan without logging. It's in the reflections that don't sync with your movement. It's in the silence that follows a beep. Every now and then, I still find them. Microwaves that weren't checked in. Boxes with old tape. Units that hum even when cold. A return left without a customer. A receipt printed with a date that hasn't happened yet. I don't open them anymore. I just carry them back. Put them in the freight cage. Leave them on the inspection table. Place them gently, respectfully, like I'm returning something that never belonged to me in the first place. Sometimes I hear the doors click open in the dark. Sometimes I smell that plastic on bone scent that sticks to your clothes like ash. Sometimes when I'm alone in the break room, I hear my name over the intercom, even though no one's at the desk. Last week I found a new receipt taped to my locker. Blank, except for one line at the bottom. Final return pending. No signature, no date, no item. Just that. I folded it and slid it into my wallet, next to the list of names from the folder. Some of them are already gone, some still show up on the morning shift, but all of them, everyone, has stopped talking about the returns. Maybe they've accepted it. Maybe they've forgotten. Maybe that's part of it too. Because the cycle doesn't end. It just moves. Box by box, hand to hand. Still warm. Still humming. Still returning things.